Welcome to the Shower Epiphanies podcast, where we explore your hidden thoughts and desires, revealing your greatest drop the mic moments. Now, here's your host, Art Costello.
Welcome to the Shower Epiphanies podcast. Today, Adam Lewis Walker is our guest. He has an amazing journey that he has been on. Adam is a TEDx speaker, high-performance coach, a 2-time best-selling author. He is also the host of a top-ranked podcast, Awakening Your Alpha, interviewing the world's elite in over 350 episodes since 2014. More recently, launching the TEDx Accelerator podcast and course focusing on how to get on your own TEDx. A former teacher, international pole vaulter from England, Adam is attempting to reach the Olympics when a freak accident occurred. Adam gave the TEDx talk, Awaken Your Alpha, How to Rise Up, and has been featured in the Huffington Post, ESPN, and many more. Welcome to the show, Adam.
Well, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I didn't know that you had tried out for the Olympics or wanted to be an Olympian.
Yeah, that was my big thing for the first I was obsessed by the Olympics growing up. I just loved the whole, everything about it, the ideal behind it, watching it when I was just watching all the different events and just wanted to be there, wanted to be part of that club. I've only ever wanted one tattoo, and that's the Olympic rings on my shoulder. But, well, I believe you can't get that without being in the Olympics. So I have no tattoos.
Well, that's really amazing. But I want to hear your journey, how it all started and how Adam grew up and where and all those good things. So
okay,
take it away,
cool.
Adam.
Yeah, if you want me to speed up, as I said, just let me know. But
we're fine.
I'll go right back to the south of England, a little place, Crawley, affectionately known. Some people who are locals call it Creepy Crawley. That's not a very nice name, but yeah, it's a real convenient spot. It's right by Gatwick Airport, which is one of the UK's major airports. It's halfway between London and Brighton. And so, yeah, I grew up there. When I was growing up, my favorite subjects at school were art and PE, and I wanted to be a PE teacher. I saw that they wore shorts, 90% of the year. They got to be active. Yeah, and obviously I know they didn't earn a huge amount of money, but that wasn't the point. It was the lifestyle. And yeah, so that's kind of the route. I either wanted to be a graphic designer or a PE teacher, and I went down that route in terms of being a PE teacher. So that was kind of my goal when I was a pole vaulter. I started pole vaulting probably about 11 years old. I was pretty young. My brother was a couple of years ahead of me. He pole vaulted as well. He took all the town sports records for pole vaults that stood for quite a long time. And I came sort of 2 years behind him and just took all his records out as well. And then, yeah, so that was kind of after going through university, that was kind of the lifestyle. A PE teacher obviously has the summers off, which is the height of the athletics track and field season. So it worked really nice as a lifestyle. I really enjoyed teaching, still enjoyed teaching. But then obviously I got to sort of 28 years old. I'd had quite a major injuries at 21. I tore my groin at 21. So that was my personal best. Over here they call it personal record, was from when I was 21, which isn't the best if you peak at 21. So I finally kind of got back to getting rid of all these injuries. And I was 28 years old and I was having my best season of my life. I got a new lifetime best and I thought it was time. Now I was getting big competitions. I competed, I went across, I have dual nationality with Ireland, basically to compete in their pole vault competition, their athletics. And I was in the UK challenge final, which is a top 10 in the UK, based on like a league system, point system over the season. And it's England, so it's the height of our summer, but it's horizontal rain, it's dreary, it's a mess. And yeah, the pole vault competition, they had the opportunity to move it indoors. And all the pole vaulters, we turned up, and as I say, it's really rough weather. It's not exactly drizzling. It's really rough. And we assumed they was going to move it indoors, but it would have been kind of behind closed doors, not in front of the big stand, which is where all the crowd were. And they made the decision, no, we're gonna carry on outside, or we're gonna do it outside. And we were like, it's not if someone's going to get injured, it's who. And there's only about 10 vaulters, and we're like, this is bad. I think even like one person was probably smart, and they pulled out. I saw myself as kind of the underdog. So I was like, okay, this is what the situation is. I'll make the best of it. And it does level the playing field when you have really bad conditions. So it kind of, I was like, okay, it comes largely a mental game here, is who's going to kind of put out the bad conditions and who wants it the most. So I did that a bit too much. I was in fourth position and there's only 4 of us left, obviously, as the bar gets higher. And I had my first run through and in fourth position as well. This is where kind of my perspective, I think, tipped over a little bit too much in terms of it's good to be, dedicated and focused and wanting to get a goal, but there's risks involved, how bad, is it worth it type thing. And I never had any knee issues or injuries to that point. And we were literally, other vaulters were holding umbrellas over us as we was running down, because you're slipping down the poles, your grips, it's really hard to hold onto the pole. And when you land on the pole vault bed, it's like landing on a swimming pool. And there's a big puddle where you're looking to take off, where you put your foot down. So I run through for the first time, and then I heard someone from the crowds sort of felt like they shouted it really loud. Oh, he's done. He won't take off again, because that had kind of happened to a lot of vaulters. Once they run through, it's hard to get your confidence back in them conditions. So I thought to myself, I'm going to take off no matter what, which was, in hindsight, not a good mindset to have going into this. So I ran down again. It felt wrong. I was too close. I overrode that and attempted to take off, at which point my heel hit the ground first on takeoff, which has no grip on it really in the puddle. And I slipped, tore my ACL, tore my meniscus cartilage all off the end of my bones, and dislocated my kneecap, and just felt like pretty much my knee or my leg had been snapped the wrong way. And that was the end. Landed, and luckily I didn't land on my head or anything. I kind of landed in the box where you take off. And that was, the most painful thing ever. And that was the last time I've vaulted.
The need to have closure in any given situation is sheer human nature. And when it comes to romantic relationships, this desire skyrockets. Has your previously failed relationship left you in immense pain? It's not uncommon for people to shy away from a new relationship after their first one fails miserably. The fear of the unknown makes them hide in a shell to prevent any future heartbreak. Relatable? Despite wanting to love and be loved, you can't take the plunge if your mind and heart are still locked somewhere in the past. Maybe you aren't aware of the power of releasing the past, or perhaps you don't know how to do it. Art Costello in his online course teaches the art of moving on from bad places to happier, more stable ones. This course can change your life for good, helping you beat all kinds of negativity on the road to eternal bliss. Sign up now before the gloominess gets the better of you at expectationacademy.com.
Even though you made the attempt to do that, have you always been a risk taker?
Yeah, I guess. Again, you've only got your own perspective. I'd like to do these things. I like to do these challenges. I made my set up my stall years before this. I did the world's highest bungee in South Africa. And I kind of committed myself to that years before. I was like, I'll do that. And it's a different thing when it comes around to actually doing it. That was very scary. And my wife, it wasn't like a pep talk. My wife was with me and she's like, don't do it. Like, what are you doing? This is crazy. And that was my pep talk. And I was like, I don't need to hear this. I've done a few things, but I think I got a healthy, I wouldn't do, again, by my standard, I wouldn't do anything too crazy or too risky. I think, I don't have a death wish.
Yeah, I always tell people I always have thought that I was fearless, that I would do anything, until I said to a guy, I'm fearless, I'll do anything. He said, would you walk across the Grand Canyon on a tightrope without a net? And I said, nope.
Yeah, exactly.
He said, you're not fearless then. So it's all about perspective.
Yeah.
But, I think that people that are athletically inclined and really go at it, because I played semi-pro baseball. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a certain element to us that we're willing to put something out there that other people don't.
Yeah. You've got to commit to a certain level. Yeah.
Yeah. It takes a lot of training, a lot of repetitions, going through the same thing all the time. How has that helped you? Can you kind of take us further in how you started to be a TEDx trainer and a speaking trainer?
Yeah, so as I say, up to that point, obviously I taught, and then all my extra time I do entrepreneurial things on the side, but all my extra time was really taken up with that dedication of looking to get to the Olympics. And, I came third in the Irish Olympic trials that year. They have qualifying standards though, so I wasn't quite there. So after that, in complete honesty, I was outwardly, had that positive face, and and I was positive about it initially, like trying to make the best of the situation. But reality, after about a year, and it was about 2 years of multiple operations, rehab, crutches, because they tried to do certain things, repair the cartilage, then they had to go back in and remove it all because it didn't quite work. And by about a year in, I'd slowly, just been chipping away at you. And I'm still like saying, oh yeah, I'm good. Like as a lot of men do, kind of suffering silence thing. About a year down, I was really struggling and it took a long time, but I was in denial, I felt, for a while. I was still like, oh, how quick can I get back? And the surgeon was like, you got to think about more like being able to play like basic sports with your kids when they're, a little bit older. And I didn't have kids at that point. So it was like, again, shifting that perspective about, yeah, okay, it's a shame I can't pole vault, but at that time, that was my whole identity, my whole life. So I became very depressed and there was no magic pill to get out of it. But after about 2 years, my first son was born and I was, I just slowly, I hit rock bottom. I had a real, bad patch and I didn't feel like I could get much lower. And so it was just that gradual, getting better than yesterday, and not a huge amount, but just gradually clawing my way out as long as it took me to kind of slip down to that spot. And coming out the other side is, everyone has their own journey, but coming out the other side, I was reinvigorated to help other people as well, because I always coached, but I really had to awaken my own alpha. And so I learned a lot from that, going through the process myself, but also once I was kind of back on my feet, I co-authored a book, The New Rules of Success. And it was like a group of different people, really varied people, very worldly, like, so, South African, Australian, English, American, different ages, like dentists, teachers. And I couldn't see what the connection was. And it was only when really that I met the majority of these people and had these sort of conversations. And I was like, on paper, you'd think we wouldn't like have this connection, but it was the mindset and these conversations about how they've approached life and overcome their obstacles. And there was lots of similarities in terms of what you need to do to get out of struggling and also thriving. And that was kind of the light bulb to this Awaken Your Alpha concept. And I was like, these conversations need to be shared, because I'd never really had that. I'd been more in my own area. So that was really the idea for the book, and the podcast were kind of at the same time. I saw it as I wanted to research this and have these conversations. I wasn't in a situation where I could just sit there researching a book for 4 years. So I launched the podcast, which did, very well initially in terms of that first year. I had, 3 to 4 episodes a week. It launched the same time as Tim Ferriss's podcast. He's done quite well since then. I've got the screenshot of me being ahead of him in the mornings before America woke up. I got that screenshot. And yes, so I just dived into that. And that was, I always wanted to write my own book, not co-author a book. So that's really what started the journey down that route. And then it kind of come full circle in terms of I did a TEDx talk, Awaken Your Alpha, in 2016. And then the book came out end of 2018. Yeah, so that's kind of I tried to be reasonably quick summary of how everything's gone along that route. Yeah.
Has anyone ever inspired you to discover a happier, healthier, and more fulfilled you? It is a magical experience, isn't it? Inspiration is indeed very powerful, yet it's often undermined. It can lift you from the ground to the sky in no time. Have you ever thought about returning the favor by inspiring the people around you? If you don't think you have it in you, we have good news for you. Art Costello's online course has everything you need to learn to supercharge yourself and shape your character into a powerful personality. Get ready to discover your strengths and unleash the creativity within. Don't believe it? Check it out yourself by signing up for this life-changing course at expectationacademy.com. That's expectationacademy.com.
One of the things that always amazes, and I guess it doesn't amaze me as much as it did in the beginning for me, but we all hit these points in our life where we're depressed and we're down at rock bottom, and we make a choice. We make the choice either to overcome it or succumb to it.
Yeah.
And that is what separates so many of us in this world. The people that have moved through it, beyond it, and on to bigger and greater things always make that choice to move forward. But the people that get stuck, they just get stuck there and they just let it devour them. Yeah. They let the event eat them up. And it can be major things. It can be minor things. It's all about our perspective to it.
Yeah, exactly that. I actually felt guilty because at the end of the day, on the surface, I'd ruined my knee. And I felt, again, I was probably a bit too hard on myself, but that was the continued downward spiral even, that I felt like I shouldn't be feeling this bad. Like I knew there was a lot, perspective. There's a lot of people who are worse off than me. It's only a knee type thing, but it was more, it wasn't the knee so much. It was just the whole identity around, like, I was a pole vaulter. And then I was like, what am I now? I just didn't really, and I just felt lost. And as I say, I was just kicking myself when I was down because I didn't acknowledge, it's okay to be feeling bad about these things. And I just tried to, be quite ruthless on myself in terms, I just wanted to feel better so much. And I was impatient and that didn't help kind of thing.
Yeah. I coach athletes, on transitioning into and out of sport. In other words, high school kids going into college sports, college going into professional sports, and professional sports athletes coming out of retiring. And, we all feel that sense of, I don't want to say abandonment, but of termination. Only a small percentage of college kids make it to professional sports. Only a small percentage of high school athletes make it to college sports. And they have to deal with it at some point in your life. You're done.
Yeah.
And how do you transition through that? And that's what I help people through, is in that transition. It can be divorce. It can be any number of events, major, minor, but a lot of it does surround about our identity, who we are and who we think we are.
Yeah.
And when you change that, and guys can have millions of dollars in the bank, and feel so lost when they end their sports career or when they end their employment career at 60 or 50 or 40. And you always have to find something bigger and greater to move on to.
And that's what was jumping up in my mind there. It's not just the identity, but also having that clear mission. And I felt when I felt lost and I'm not, not on form is when that mission has become unclear or not as crystal clear as it could be. And, obviously before it was very clear about doing certain things athletically. And then with the podcast that was very clear, my goals there. And then with launching a new podcast, and having a goal to do a TEDx and to get this book out. And whenever it's, again, you got to be careful not to turn your life into a to-do list of achieving certain things. But, obviously the classic enjoy the journey thing. But, there is a pitfall of the sort of ambitious people who just have these things they want to do and they're just ticking them off and they're missing, life is going on now because they're just on this treadmill of as soon as something's accomplished, they're on to the next thing. So I feel like I have to be aware of that as well. And I think people listening, don't go down that route either.
Well, the thing is that I always tell people, just do. Just do. Do what comes up in your life. You don't have to have a checklist of things we all have bucket lists of things that we would like to do, but the key word there is like to do. It doesn't have to be, I've got to do this or I'm not going to be fulfilled as a person. But every day we have events in our lives that we could do. It can be going down to high school and sharing with the kids in high school what your life has been like. It can be going down to a homeless shelter. It can be going to church. There's so many things that it can be. But the people that sit at home and turn the TV on and vegetate in front of it, they don't get any fulfillment out of that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, a lot of times as well, talking about accomplishing things and missing certain things, you're talking about just doing as well. People think like, oh, once I do this, once I achieve, then I will be that person. I will be nice to people then, or I will give to charity then, or I will, enjoy my life then. And it's important to flip that. Be that person that you want to be today and then do these things, as opposed, it won't change you. There's no reason you can't be that person today. And that's where you kind of got to start from the core of who do you want to be? Do things that you respect yourself for first. And then, go out there and, like you say, you need to do these things.
In my life, I've done so many things, and I'll just go through them real quickly. I've been a U.S. Marine. I was in Vietnam. I'd worked in the entertainment business, played sports at a professional, semi-professional level. I've owned my own business. I've been a podcaster. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I haven't become a TEDx speaker, but we're going to talk about how I can get there.
That's why we've been talking.
So there's always something out there to do, but I don't let it be, I don't obsess about it. You know, I take and live life in the here and now. And when it presents itself at the moment, we all have opportunities throughout our life. They come up every day. It's whether you choose to move on them and take the chance on the opportunity, or you're going to sit there and be an observer and say, I wished I had done that. I don't ever want that in my life where I wished I had done something, because I just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
And remember, we were talking about being fearless. You know, that's why I always thought I was fearless, because I drove my wife nuts, my late wife nuts, because she was the person who was steeped in security. She wanted everything secure. And me, I want everything. I want to absorb everything, you know? So anything that came along, I was willing to try.
Yep.
And it just drove her nuts. I mean, I literally saw her and it drove her nuts. But it's who I am, you know?
And when it comes to fearless as well, I do believe all of us need to fear less. I don't think we should be fearless, but, you know, and that's something, you know, we're all trying, because a lot of times when it comes down to the nitty gritty, you know, even I look at myself, you know, why haven't you done certain things, or why haven't you made it? We talk about taking a chance on opportunities, but also when you do that, making the most of that opportunity, like going all in and fearing less. A lot of times, the number one thing that's holding people back, if not a huge amount of fear, is some level of fear. Is that sometimes you can try and put blame on other situations, people, but then realistically, it comes down to your own fears.
Adam, the folks on the podcast cannot see what Adam's doing right now, but he just triggered something to me that I work with people who have fear. And I want to explain it to Adam, because he did it without realizing he was taking his fingers and he was kind of like turning his fingers. One of the things I do with people who have fear is I tell them, take your hand, put it up to your temple, and turn that fear switch off. Literally take it and turn it off, because it works. When people physically do that, it helps them visualize being less fearful. Mm-hmm. And I really, it struck a chord with me when I saw your fingers kind of turning up to it, because we do it inadvertently. Mm-hmm. I mean, when we fear something, we kind of make gestures and stuff. And when we take it and turn it into a switch that we can turn on our head and turn it off, it's very effective. So I had to get that in there.
Right.
So how has that all worked into your speaking?
Okay. Well, we talked about certain things you want to do alongside of the book. I always wanted to, you notice them zones when you're obviously, you feel like you're in the zone, like whether you call it the alpha zone or on fire, or, you know, you're just lit up and, you know, it's effortless and you're really enjoying it, and you kind of like, that's what you're meant to do. I got that I kind of cut my teeth, as I say, being a teacher for 10 years. That's a ruthless audience. You know, if you're not entertaining them on a daily basis or lesson by lesson, that can turn pretty quick. You know, they don't give you any kind of, even if you've done well for the last 5 years or whatever, they're all about current performance. So
all about living in the moment.
Yeah, if they can see you're off on that day, they're in that moment, they're making the most of their opportunity. Yeah, so the TEDx thing, the TED Talks, I've always been a fan of that side of things. And again, I put this in terms of, we haven't touched it yet, but one of the things I put down that big mission as soon as my son was born as well, we put something I've always wanted to do is, always felt like I'd end up in terms of my vision, living in America. So as soon as my son was born, I was like, well, okay, when is this going to happen? So me and my wife, we had the discussions, but we set a clear deadline right before he starts school. And you think that's quite vague, but that's 5 years. That's to like get things in order. That came around pretty quick. We didn't know how I was going to do it, but ultimately we landed. We had him enrolled at both an England school and out here, and we landed like September 1st, and he started school, but later that week. So we made it. And that's that, setting that big mission and then just working towards it. And there were key things that we had no doubt was going to make it. But yeah, there was bumps in the road, but we made it. Sorry, I had to put that in there. Getting back to the original question, I've gone off on a tangent now.
I love tangent. I love tangents. So we were talking about how your TEDx developed.
One of the things, I thought, well, when I come to America, then I'll step that up a little bit. So I obviously got, I'm like, okay, that's one of my own personal excuses out of the way. So then I pursued the TEDx stage. But again, it came back to having this, if you're saying that you never get bored of talking about that just is coming out, like it's a clear mission or a clear idea that you want to share and you believe it's going to have an impact. That's where you got to start with that. So the TEDx was just a platform. Obviously, we're doing the podcast and I'm working towards a book on that. And the TEDx was just another platform to help get clearer as well, because up to that point, I had all the concepts of Awaken Your Alpha, but it was, if someone asked what exactly was it, it's hard to articulate, quickly. So going through that process, just, creativity thrives under constraints, was very rewarding in terms of just getting that, nailed down to what exactly is it. And I got it broken down into awareness, action, and ascension in terms of, the key 3 pieces of Awaken Your Alpha. And ultimately that became the 3 sort of sections of the book. So that was very useful. And so I did the TEDx, and part of the 3 key things that have had like an impact in at least in the entrepreneurial and business world for me personally, professionally, was the podcast, the book, and the TEDx. So that's kind of how the TEDx came around. And so for the last couple of years, people generally ask me around that region, like, how do you do a podcast? How do you get a TEDx? And, I helped and advised on both. But again, having that awareness, which is the first kind of piece of Awaken Your Alpha, is when I talk about TEDx talks and how you do that, I noticed I was way more engaged and way more fired up about that than, talking about the nuts and bolts and all the technical side of podcasting, for example, which I can do. But again, there's only so much of you and what you can do. So I paid attention to that. And that's when I started to help people a little bit more with their TEDx talks, and then create this talk accelerator process and then take people through that. And I find that very rewarding. And it can see as well, it has we talk about these clear missions and goals. It has a clear impact in the person having gone through the process, and also helping share their message and amplify their message. I do work and coach people, on what we talked about, the Awaken Your Alpha stuff and, fulfillment and, achieving things. But again, a lot of times that is very all-encompassing, wholesome kind of, there's lots of aspects to it. Whereas the thing is like about the TEDx as well, it's like, get a TEDx. It's got a very clear goal.
Well, there's very clear steps to it. And, when you're doing personal development, which brings me to a question that I did want the audience to hear, because, we love people's journeys. When you decided to leave England and come to America, what was that process like in your head? I don't mean the physical process of moving. I mean, preparing yourself mentally, because you went from a place where you were comfortable, had grown up, to a totally new place for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How was that like?
Yeah. So I would look at it as like I preempted things. I manned the lifeboats before I left. I started for the last year and a half or 18 months. I thought, right, it's going to be a shock to the system moving, not just to England to America. That wasn't the biggest shock, especially looking back on it now. It was moving from quite a populated urban. I had access to, countryside and stuff. So I kind of had it all there. Like, right, you think it to quite, I'm in right up on the Great Lakes, beautiful area, but it's more remote. So, it's moving from that environment to, middle of nowhere ultimately, but it's beautiful. That was the big shock. But also, so for the last 18 months, at that point, I was still I was part-time lecturing at college whilst doing my Awaken Your Alpha. No, I didn't. That's when I started my Awaken Your Alpha. I was doing entrepreneurial things on the side. And that transition was a very painful. That was when I was getting pulled in 2 directions. But once I was like, okay, and this only came from having a clear deadline. We are moving in 18 months. Teaching and, taking the money and doing this, much as we talk about the comfort zone, that's not going to help me in 18 months because I'm going to be gone. I'm going to be in another country. So then from that point, I quit against the majority of advice. I had 2 young children, quit my last job and just dived all into everything entrepreneurial, and only approached it that if I couldn't do it in the middle of nowhere in northern Michigan, then I wouldn't do it here. So that kind of crossing that bridge before I had to. So then when I landed here, it was obviously it's still a challenge, and the entrepreneurial stuff is always a challenge, but I'd already been working on that. So it wasn't like moving location, changing job or changing careers all in one go. So that side of things was a little bit smoother because it didn't make too much difference to me at that point where I was. But it was the power of deadlines. And yeah, it does take a lot to get used to the, as I say, being more remote and away from family. I'm not one of these people who wasn't close to my family. I'm 5 minutes around the road from my parents and we drop in there all the time. And that is tough, not having them right here. And also there's guilt involved in this. Let's get, be real. I haven't really talked about this in interviews. I felt and feel guilty about taking away their grandchildren because they are obsessed and we're obsessed with them. And, there's a lot of love and it's, we deal with it now, but they were definitely not happy with me.
Yeah, I can understand that because I have 4 granddaughters and, 2 of them are in Colorado. I'm in Texas and the other 2 are here. And yeah, I could understand that. That would probably be the toughest of all of it.
Yeah, it's horrible. And that was their only grandchildren at the time. I was the first one, me and my brother and I was the first one to have kids. And so they were obsessed by them. It's, they didn't have, luckily my brother's now, he's still over in England. He's got 3 kids now. So that takes a little bit of heat off us. But at the time, really ripping out a key piece. And it's very, very tough. But thank goodness for technology. We Skype all the time. They're fully retired now. They're coming over this Christmas for a full month in the winter, which I'm surprised. It's the longest they've been ever. And it's going to be in the winter. So over Christmas. So we get really good quality time and we make the effort. But, it's been a tough transition.
Yeah. And that's one of the things about the world right now. It is so small. It used to be this big thing and we couldn't travel, wasn't as easy. And, with the new technology and Skype and Zoom and all the different platforms that we can FaceTime and everything that we can do with them now and stay connected. But it's still that connection of being able to put your arms around your son.
Exactly. And it's what
your grandchildren.
It's what you focus on. For the first year and a half was really tough because they focused on the fact, not that, okay, we're having these conversations, we're keeping in touch. They focused on the fact that they couldn't physically touch and they couldn't have cuddles and they couldn't just pop round. They focused on that a lot. And, they didn't come and visit us for 18 months. Now they're over, every 6 months roughly. We don't go that long, but I felt like it was like a bit of punishment. Like I chose to go here. But, at that age, the kids grow a lot in this 18 months. So, I know they probably have some regrets around that. But, we see each other a lot now. And we have really good quality time because obviously we're staying with them or they're staying with us. That's one of the reasons I got my place here. Made sure it had a big, decent base that they can have the whole, they have their whole, so they don't feel like they're living in our house or that, they're stepping on our toes. I said they can stay as long as they want. They got their own bathroom, their own bedroom, their own whole floor. So yeah, we're making it work.
Yeah. And I think it builds appreciation also. When you're not together and see somebody every day, you kind of get to that point of taking it for granted. Yeah. But when you come and visit your children and your grandchildren, it puts a whole different perspective on it.
Yeah, you're present. Yeah, very present. Yeah.
That's a good word, very present. You're there. I mean, you're in totality, with them. And that's a great thing.
I have to say, just when you're talking about that, one of my favorite things, and it's not worth them being apart, but one of my favorite moments, I feel them building up, and I feel that's probably going to be like replaying in my head as I get older and older, is when we arrive back in England at the airport or they arrive here, and just because I get to hang back a little bit because obviously my boys just sprint to them and they're just obsessed. And that moment is like my favorite moment ever.
Yeah. How were your boys? They were pretty young when they came here, right? So they really didn't have any cultural shock.
The older one was literally just turning 5. So yeah, he
was there then.
Sort of 2 and 5. The younger one, and he obviously didn't go to school straight away. He stayed home. He still had his English accent for quite a long time, and he's at home with his mum and me. And yeah, they did really well. And again, this was the reality of just sort of comparisons at the time. Again, coming from quite a populated urban area to middle of nowhere, they were going to, Dylan, my oldest, was going to be in a class of one of like 33 students. And then we're going to have even like 3 classes that had some open times. It's going to be like 9 students. It was going to be, as a teacher, I'm like, oh, that's too many kids. He came here and he was one of 19. And it was just quiet, relaxed. And you got that individual attention. that, in England, that's more 1 to 19 is more like private schools where you're paying a huge amount of money. So yeah, I think that really helped the transition because, he's a thinker, quite a quiet guy, especially then. And I felt like he was going to get lost in the crowd, whereas they had the space and time to get that individual attention. So I think that really helped. And obviously school is a great social thing. I think he adjusted quicker than all of us. So we were like, oh, we got to make friends, or we got to try and get into get settled and get organized. He's got that social thing straight away. So he was very quick to adapt.
Don't know which direction you want your life to take? Are you sinking deep down into the pit of uncertainties day by day? So, what's the secret to leading a happy, satisfied life? It's taking matters into your own hands. But what if the matters in question are a total blur? Art Costello's Expectation Academy course aims to tell you exactly how you can get some clarity in your life. This course can be your savior on your journey to reinventing yourself. While you certainly can't plan your whole future ahead, you can definitely control twists and turns your life takes. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for this course now at expectationacademy.com. Get a chance to broaden your horizons and add meaning to your life. That's expectationacademy.com.
Speaking of your children, do you set expectations for your children?
Yes, definitely.
Are they your expectations, or are they expectations geared to direct and teach them?
So I suppose I'm a big believer in, show and do, behaviors you want to see. Not kind of like, I'll tell you what to do, but hey, it's different rules for dad. So, and there is one or two I say, hey, it's different rules for dad. But generally, because I understand, like, it's almost, especially for a kid, but even for adults, it's almost pointless telling someone to do something and clearly you're not taking your own advice. That's why, on the most basic level, you might be a personal trainer who's smoking a well, we call them fags, but smoking a cigarette. Or, out of shape personal trainer, a broke financial advisor, all these sorts of things. And it's the same thing with if you're telling a kid to do something and you're not demonstrating to yourself, then pay more attention to what you do and how you live your life and your perspective, your mindset. So I have expectations that obviously they're going to be happy and to lots of love. Yeah, that's quite a general thing. Then
teach them this for me, would you? Because my expertise is in expectations, as you know. Teach them to learn how to manage their expectations, because it's really not the expectations that the world and everybody else puts on them. It's the expectation they have on themselves to be good, to do good, to care about this world. Yeah. Set those integrity issues with them at an early age and teach them to manage all the expectations that the world is going to throw at them. And you will have taught them happiness. Yeah. And it's interesting to talk about that expectations as well. I'm thinking of little kids, or anyway, again, exactly like manage their expectations, especially the younger one. It's that a lot of children as well. It's if they can't do something or they're not instantly good at it, they don't do it, or they expect to be good at things instantly. So they'll be like, oh, I don't like this. And I'm like, you haven't really done it. And they're like, oh, I don't like it. Obviously, like anything, when you start podcasting, or if you start shooting a basket, obviously you're going to miss the first couple. The first few aren't going to be very good. But if you've got that expectations that, oh, I tried it, I wasn't any good at it, I'm not doing it. And I noticed that in them sometimes, especially the youngest one is like, that very getting frustrated very quick. Because obviously they got that expectation they should be better, or that instantly, because they might see, me or someone doing something and they don't appreciate that you've gone through the steps to get to that point. So that's something you're talking about managing their expectations. I'm always working on that because, I think when people expect they're going to be instantly good at something, that's a problem because they give up on stuff. Yeah, my mom had a great one for me. She always used to say to me when, I grew up on a farm, so we ate vegetables that came out of the garden. My mother grew spinach, and, we had calf's liver and, all this kind of food that is not kids the most appetizing, but it's good and healthy for them, And my mother always used to say, have you been to a restaurant and had a bad meal? And I'd say, yeah, I've been to a couple where they don't cook as good as you do. She said, did you stop eating? I said, no, I don't stop eating. She said, eat your spinach. Eat your spinach. But you know what? As an adult, I love liver and I love spinach and I love all vegetables and all that. And I think it's because when I was a kid, we tried them. We grew to like them because the taste was good and, it was prepared right.
Well, that's the boys know an expectation. I love it. They manage themselves now around eating fruits and vegetables. They just know that they need to eat their body, not for mum and dad to keep us happy, which they do, but they need to eat them for their body because they get that they won't survive very well long term, and they already get that concept that that they need that kind of balance, that nutrients and meal. That's an expectation for them as well as for us.
Yeah, and that's how you start. That's how they start learning about expectations. So that's great. Well, we're getting close to our time out already, and it went really fast. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to give you, Adam, a chance to let people know how they can get a hold of you, where they can get a hold of you, what you've got coming up, anything that you can share with us as last words of advice and wisdom. We would love to hear it.
Okay, so I suppose I'll start with best ways or easiest ways to get hold of me. Adam Lewis Walker. I'm across all social media, Facebook, Instagram's quite a big one for me on that one. In terms of the Awaken Your Alpha stuff, obviously Awaken Your Alpha podcast, it's ayalpha.com. And then again on social media, Awaken Your Alpha. If you're interested in getting or achieving a TEDx talk, or even just interested, how might you do that? Then it's talkaccelerator.com. So that's just talkaccelerator.com. And again, that can all be found through just going to my social links, and I'm happy to I really like, that's another thing I really like on that concept. Kind of the first stage of that is hearing your ideas, as I've done with art, hearing ideas worth sharing, and I just love hearing that. So if you're and what might work well on that stage, if you're interested in that, please do reach out. The Awaken Your Alpha stuff is geared towards men, but not exclusively, and the Awaken Your Alpha book is if you're interested in any of the concepts that we've talked about here, please do go check that out. It's got a lot of good reviews that you can browse. So that's kind of the good ways to connect. The other thing, was it words of wisdom next or what?
Yeah, lay some words of wisdom on us, and then I'll take us out of here.
Okay. So I like to finish with, for me, what Awaken Your Alpha means, the concept behind that, because I sometimes feel like the word alpha has kind of had negative stereotypes in society. People expect certain things from that. But to me, I go back to the original definition. So Alpha Centauri from the solar system is star that shines the brightest. And alpha in the animal kingdom, it's literally the two examples I give. It gives like the alpha female of an elephant pack. So there's no mention of male or female. And so the Awaken Your Alpha concept is to shine as bright as you can with your time here. And that's not to put others in your shadow, but to illuminate and to achieve the highest rank in areas of your life that are important to you, that you've prioritized. So that's where it's a very personal thing. And so that's what, it's that kind of my approach to life and what I believe in. So.
It has been a pleasure. Adam, all of what you've left with us is going to be in the show notes, so people will be able to see that and get a hold of it. And we're going to have to do this again. You and I have a real good connection, and we could have lots to talk about that went beyond this. But I want to thank you personally for coming on the show and sharing your journey with my audience. And we look forward to meeting you again. And with that being said, everybody knows where they can get a hold of me, expectationtherapy.com. And I will let Heather White take us out of here.
Thanks for listening to the show. Drop us your comments and questions with what you want answered on the show. You can subscribe on iTunes and Binge Network. You can also get more information on the website, expectationtherapy.com.